People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we are back. And this week we have an amazing guest. This is someone that I met online. We have a mutual friend in common, happened to be a magician. And so I was like, all right, she's cool already. And then she starts dipping her toes in the podcasting world. And today, which when this comes out, it'll be yesterday, she released her first episode of her new podcast called the Hall Closet Podcast. Everybody, it's Donna Hall. How are you, girl?
Hi, I'm doing great. Super excited. Super excited to be here on your show because we've, been friends on Facebook for a couple of years, and super excited to share about my podcast.
All right, so we got to get started. Let's start at the very beginning. Your podcast, what's it about? I know, but tell the listeners.
So my podcast is basically about what it's like to grow up in a lower tier crime family. We're not talking mob stuff. Just some pretty significant stories that have made national news, 3 national news stories just from my immediate family. So it's been, at the time I didn't really realize it was true crime, but really what it's like to grow up in that and the trauma that it caused and how I've kind of overcome that. So it's true crime with a message of a personal message of hope, basically.
So, from your bio, it says, I don't even know where to start.
It's confusing.
I know where to start. My first question here, are you scared to reveal any of this stuff?
Absolutely not afraid to reveal anything. I do have some issues with my brother because he's not happy that I'm revealing things, but I am not afraid for my life, no.
So, do you mention on the podcast, like it says that your dad was a snitch and he got people sent away. What about those families coming back? And
I mean, listen, that wasn't me. I was a child when these things occurred. He is no longer living.
okay.
So my hope is, hope. I mean, one of the people that he put away, I am very, very close with. We talk every day. He's autistic. He spent 29 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit because of, and he's autistic, because of my stepfather and my mother. So I think the opposite. You would think that he wouldn't want anything to do with me, but we are like super tight. He texted me and called me today and, congratulating me and asking me for help because I am his point of contact for all things like business. Because he doesn't understand insurance letters and when he gets things, I kind of help explain it to him. So.
Wow.
So was he almost like a scapegoat? Is that why was he about to be put into jail, or do you not want to go into it?
No, I absolutely can go into it. No, he was, there's a book about this, and you'll learn about it on my podcast, but there is a book out there. It's called The Trials of Walter Ogrod. That is his name. And he was a very easy, I don't want to say scapegoat, but he was easy for the police to kind of pin this on because anytime you have, this was a little girl who was found murdered in a TV box on the side of the street.
I think I've seen this on not
Dateline.
American Wanted, but Dateline, but maybe Unsolved Mysteries or something.
Yeah.
They did a case on him.
Oh.
I saw that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did do a case. Well, they did do quite a few shows, and my mother was on those shows because once, all of the information came out, and this was a direct result of the author who spent 12 or 15 years researching and doing all of these interviews with Walter and with my mom and all these other people kind of helping get him released from jail. But, they finally realized that, they got the wrong guy 29 years later. And how do you really live with yourself knowing that the true killer is still out there?
Right.
So
And
it
yeah,
has.
29 years of his life is just gone, and gotta
And when
get
you're
out.
when
Yeah.
you're on death row, you are in a cell by yourself.
Ah,
So, and then you're in a cell by yourself in a block, or like, I don't, that's what they call it, blocks in jail, with murderers.
right.
And I'm not laughing, believe me. When I'm laughing, sometimes it's just like, it's just so unfucking unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're gonna have to edit that out. I'm so sorry.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
It's
You're good.
just so completely unbelievable that, the city is just so corrupt, because I would say my stepfather put 25 people, he wrote confessions, fake confessions.
So
So
25.
None of them did it. He didn't.
Well, I mean, I really don't know. I know several didn't. I know several of the
Oh.
cases where he absolutely did not do it. But
Did they get out?
no, there's still
Oh,
people.
geez.
Golly, all right, so your podcast, about an hour long. The first one's a little short, but they're going to be about an hour altogether, right?
Yeah, I mean, the episode 5 is an hour. I think they're about 45 minutes.
So you have, I don't know, 7 hours of footage. You guys can listen to detail after detail, but we want some juicy detail here. I am just, this is awesome, and I feel like so much pressure because it's such a great story. I want to get it out. Tell me about your mom and dad. Was your mom involved? Did he bring her in? Were they innocent and fell into it, or was your dad looking for that and bringing her in?
And what kind of crimes are we talking about? Like,
Well, as far as my family, or as far as the people. So as far as my family, number one, to have so it isn't. So first of all, let me just back up. This man, even though my last name is Hall, my father, well, that's cool. It's too confusing. The man that I thought was my dad my whole life, his name was Frank Hall. Okay. My mom was not a good mother, and she was very promiscuous and had many different men. So John Hall is my stepfather, and I only really lived with him for about a year-ish. So he was a career criminal in the fact that really he was a drug addict. He was a bad drug addict because he was constantly getting high, stealing cars, running into police cars high, passing out while driving. I mean, stories could just go on and on and on. Stealing things, printing his own prescriptions and taking them to the pharmacy. And yeah, I mean, that's the type of crime that we're talking about. And then what would happen is once he was in jail, he would get picked up and then you get picked up by the police and you go to jail. And, the city is so corrupt that they would put him in cells with criminals that are accused of a crime, but not necessarily found guilty. So it was like in the like local jail, not like, federal prison, or not, these state prisons, but more like the local. So the Philadelphia local jail, they would put him in these cells and he would write fake confessions saying that they actually confessed to him, and then he would testify against them. And that's what happened with the case of Walter. So it's a lot more convoluted than that. There's a lot more to the story. But yeah, that's where he was a criminal. Really, at the end of the day, all of these stories that went national were pertaining to him. The first story was from this all really started with the national news story is that, let me just tell you something that I think is that I can share. There's a lot of things that I kind of want to keep for you guys to go listen to. But one thing that's really interesting is the way that my mom met John. So, my brother spent a lot of time in juvenile hall. He was a troubled teenager, a troubled guy, and he's the one causing me some heartache right now about this and stress. But he was in jail, and he was in our local jail, and he met John Hall, who eventually became my stepfather, in jail, and set him up with my mother. So my mom started her relationship with John while my brother was in jail. So they started a relationship just over the phone.
Wow.
Yeah. So you asked, did your mom just fall into this, or did she know? At the end of the day, she thought he was a doctor because he was a very intelligent man. She thought he was a doctor. So, that was her thing. And, she was, he gave up some bullshit excuse as to why he was in there for writing something with prescriptions or something. And she believed him, and they became madly and passionately in love, and he came out and moved in with us. She went and visited him, and then as time went on, she began to start taking part in the crimes that he committed, including, so basically how it started was he was no longer able to live in our county, because when he was in our county, he didn't have all of the corrupt police officers and DAs and all of the people that were in his court and would use him to get these, cold cases. So he no longer wanted to live here. And my sister at the time was 12, and my mom left her home alone and went and lived with him in Philadelphia. We lived outside of Philadelphia. So at 12 years old, my sister was going to school on her own. We ended up running out of fuel in the house, so we had no oil because we had oil heat. And my brother found out that my sister was home alone. And because of that, called the police, but also the news. So my mom ended up spending time in jail, and my stepfather did not like that. So he in turn set my brother up for a murder in Philadelphia. And my brother spent almost 2 years in jail for a murder he didn't commit.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow.
But
it's unbelievable.
I think I remember hearing this about that's John Hall, and they went to him for any unsolved, and he just said, yeah, he knows the answer, and he filled out I remember I went on a kick a while back of watching, Unsolved Mysteries was on, Roku or something, and you could just binge them. And I think I just had it on in the office behind me as I swear, I think it was Unsolved Mysteries. Wow, this is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
our local news did a whole series, like a 10 or 12 episode series about this particular case with Walter, because it's like, it's upsetting to find out. And same thing with the girl that he accused my brother. It's an unsolved crime, so there's 2 unsolved crimes, but really there's probably 25 or 30, because
Did you realize what was happening?
No
at
idea.
the time, or it was just looking back, you started connecting the dots? Or
no,
the stories came out.
So I found this. So of course I knew about my sister being left home alone. I've been on my own since I was 15. It was a bad situation at home. I knew it was a bad situation. I was able, luckily, to get out of the situation by pretending to my school. My mom, she didn't give me attention. There was no love. And so I told the school that I was addicted to cocaine and then I couldn't stop and I wanted help. So they made her, when I told her that I wanted help, she was like, oh, fuck you. Whatever. God, I'm so sorry. I'm from Philly. I'm so sorry. She was like, never really cared. So I went to my school nurse and I was like, hey, I need help. So they made her send me away, which is what I wanted, to get away from her and away from the heartache. So really, I think I was transcendent. I think I knew at the time. I just, it was just a pretty smart move as a 15-year-old to be like, I need to get out of here. So I knew about my sister because I was living on my own at the time and I was helping her. And, I have a lot of guilt surrounding that because I guess I could have moved back home. But I was trying to save myself. And I knew that my mom was leaving our home alone. I didn't know the details of it. I was bringing her food that I got from like a food pantry I might had. But I was bringing her food and making sure, if she needed anything. I took her to church a couple of times.
How old were you?
So when she was 12, I was 18.
Okay. Okay.
So I had like just gotten a car. I was living in a transitional living program where they kind of helped me as long as I was in school full time and working. They helped me subsidize my rent, which was like $150 a month or something like that, you know. And I still didn't have a lot of money, but I was determined to not. I was determined to break the cycle from the life that I was, you know, living.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I knew about that. And then I knew about my brother being, I actually worked in Center City. So I knew that he was arrested for killing, Kimberly Ernest was the girl's name. I knew that he was arrested for that. I went and visited him in the jail, which was really sad because he was all beaten up. I took his kids to visit him. I didn't know that my stepfather was behind that. And I didn't know that his involvement or my mom's involvement with all of these cases, these snitch cases. I had no idea that my mom was involved as she was. How I found out about this was the book,
Oh,
The
okay.
Trials of Walter Ogrod. So I was made aware of the book. I read it, devastated me. And I was absolutely devastated
What did he
to
get
know
out
that.
of? What did he get out of getting all these people put in jail and him? I mean, because he had to testify,
They
right? So
looked the other way when he.
yeah, were they looking the other way for
No,
his
they
stuff? Or
they didn't
no, he
look the
still
other
get
way.
credit.
They just gave him a deal. They let him out. So if he was facing 5 years in jail, he didn't have to face 5 years in jail. They would give him a deal and he'd be out. He'd still be on probation. So that's how they would get him back in, because he'd be on probation. He'd be out using drugs. He'd steal a car, you know, run into all the stuff that he did, because it was all
Yeah.
horrible and criminal. And then they would bring him in and they'd use him again. He was like, I mean, there's plenty of stories written about him, and you know,
Wow.
and shows. But the purpose of the podcast is really to talk about how you can, you know, living this type of life doesn't define who you are. It doesn't make you. You can break the cycle. And, you know, it's not easy, but and I'm going to be 49 years old. It is, I still suffer, you know, and have issues and insecurities and worry about, you know, am I good enough, or, you know, all the typical things that you deal with. But you don't have to relive that life. You don't have to go down that path, and there's other ways. And, you know, if I can help one person, that's kind of my goal. And that was why I decided to get into podcasting, really.
Golly. So coming from that, leaving school, telling school you're addicted to cocaine. I mean, that's got to be.
This is gonna be scary.
That's got to be. You're so desperate, you'll make something up to make yourself look bad.
Right.
I mean, wow.
I wanted help. It was, you know, I had, when I was 12, I had tried to commit suicide. So my mom like did, you know, I had to go to the hospital, and then they put me in an institution and they gave me all these drugs. But and I think that's why I think that was a place of safety for me. I went in and people cared and people listened to me. So I think when I came out and life was just the same again, there was no love, no care, no concern. It was like you know, and some people say it was like I was Cinderella, because, you know, I basically was my mom's maid. And, you know, I took care of my younger sister, who was 6 years younger than me, and I had to clean the house and do the laundry and cook and take care of everything. And, you know, I just was screaming for attention. Like, you know, I was promiscuous. I was doing all kinds of, you know, I was smoking weed and drinking and doing all the things. But at the end of the day, I just knew that I just knew in my body that this wasn't what I needed. I needed something more. I remember just feeling this, like, this is not my life. This is not normal. Like, this is not my life. Like, it just was like part of who I am. And, you know, instead of getting into drugs, or instead of, you know, killing myself, or all the things that people do when they have these strong emotions and abandonment, you know, basically I was abandoned. I turned inward and said, I need to go away. I need help. And I didn't want to go back in the mental institution because they give you drugs and it makes you hallucinate and all kinds of stuff. Where when I went into the drug rehab, I was able to really focus on myself. And yeah, I lied, and looking back on that, I don't like that I lied to some of those counselors. But at the end of the day, I got help. And the help was more than just how to live life. It was like, I don't think this is a good environment for you to go back to. And my mom never showed up to any of our like family meetings. And then eventually they were like, we really don't think that this is a good idea for her to come home. So then they made the decision to put me in a halfway house or like a group home for kids. All of the kids there were mandated to be there by like, they were bad. I don't want to say bad kids. They were troubled kids who were in jail, and they were mandated to be there after getting out of jail or before going into jail. It was like not the best environment for me, but I thrived there because people cared. And I was able to go. I was able to still go to school. I was able to work. I was able to build relationships with people and get out of that toxic environment that I was growing up in. So I was lucky in that way.
I teach magic classes. One of the places I have taught in the past was a school for troubled kids. Now, they dropped off at regular school, and they're bused to this building. And from all different school districts, they're bused to this building, and they're not allowed to go to regular school. They've been kicked out, so they have to go to this school. They have a rubber room for detention. They have each kid has their own counselor that walks around with them to class. These are troubled kids. Now, I've been teaching that school for 10 years. We get a job working for a government facility. I don't want to say the name of the place. And these are children that the government is taking care of, kind of like a camp, like a summer camp. They have cottages, they have counselors, group homes, but they have horseback riding, and they have gym class, and they do school there, but it's a private fenced facility by the government, because they're waiting on their mom and dad's trial to figure out if they're going to live with their grandparents or where, because mom and dad are now in jail. The number of kids that I saw from that class I taught that were at that school, that were at that facility, it was dumbfounding. And, it's like, well, that makes sense of why they're acting out. And it's so troubled kids, bad kids. They weren't bad kids. They had a lot going on.
Yeah.
You're up all night long of mom and dad doing drugs and yelling and screaming and fighting and drinking or whatever, and then go to school the next day. What's 9 times 9? I don't care.
Right.
Can I take a nap? God bless them. God bless you. It's horrible. I mean, you're an adult, but I feel bad for the kid in you that had to go through that.
Yeah.
We had a guy on our podcast years ago that was in the military. And he got caught smoking just weed. And he got a dishonorable discharge. And they literally just kind of kicked him out of the military at the front gate. You were sick that day, so you don't remember it because you weren't there.
Oh, that's the one.
And she missed one podcast in 5 years.
Yeah.
But they kicked him out at the front gate. Now, he's from Virginia. I don't know. But this place is like in Missouri. He has no money. He's got nothing. And he's got a dishonorable discharge. So he immediately just started doing drugs, and he lived on the street. And, you could have taken that route so easy. That's what it took for him to make a catalyst. He had no money, no nothing, and just started doing drugs, living on the street.
There's a lot of things that I look back on, and I think, wow, like even as far as, because I was promiscuous and I looked a lot older than I was, even as far as like human trafficking that happens, like I am shocked, like absolutely shocked that like I never was a victim of that. Like there's so many things I mean, yes, I could have gone down that road, but there's also, I just happen to be really lucky. Now, I do think, and this is something that I talk about on my podcast and has been huge for me. When I was in my 40s, I found out that my mom there are 5 kids in my family growing up. I am the second youngest. So I have 2 older sisters who have the same father. My brother, who we talked about, has a father. My mom got an artificial insemination with me because Frank Hall was in Vietnam, and he had that Agent Orange or whatever, so he was impotent. He couldn't have children. So my mom, to please him, because she was always a pleaser of men, went and got an artificial insemination. So I found out in my 40s that my dad is actually a prominent doctor in the area. And I have siblings all across the country who are amazing human beings. And my father, while he doesn't want to meet me, is okay, is an amazing human being. And I feel like because of my genes and because I am part of him, I think that's why I had that ability innately to know that this isn't the life for me. And, you know, I'm so internally grateful. I'm actually starting to cry a little bit because I am like truly grateful that I have those genes. And I think of all of my siblings that I grew up with, I'm lucky in that way.
Wow.
So when people say to me like, how did you get out, or what, you know, what made you change? And let me tell you something. My sisters, my siblings that I grew up with, they're not bad people. They're amazing, amazing human beings, you know, as well. We've all persevered. I just think that there's something different about me. Maybe not special, maybe not better, just different. So I think truly that's why I was able to get out and why I'm able to kind of persevere through this.
So you said Donna Hall, your mom thought he was a doctor. Now he wrote fake prescriptions, but then he moves in with her. How did he keep that? I mean, they're really good. From what I know, the mafia, the way they can twist stories and get people to believe them and follow, or just whatever. Even drug addicts, the way they can weave a tale is amazing. So how did this guy get your mom to think that he was a doctor now that he's living with her? And because he had a prescription pad? That's all it took?
Well, he printed them in her bedroom. So I think at some point she realized but didn't care because, you know, he was so persuasive and so manipulative. And like I said, he's brilliant. You know, I remember I have files upon files of all the letters that he sent her. He's a brilliant man, extremely intelligent. I mean, literally would speak like a lawyer, you know, in speaking to him and all of his letters. I mean, he represented himself in letters to, you know, varying entities. I don't even know what, but I have the letters. I think that my mom
really good.
You know what? That's so
good. Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
and that's what I was just talking to somebody about this who I sent, a good friend of mine who I sent the podcast to, like the first episode before it released, and she said the exact same thing. She said, imagine if he used his knowledge and brain and intelligence for good. You know, he could have probably been a doctor. I know his brother, I just found out, is an anesthetist, so he's a doctor, I guess, as well, or maybe he's a
anesthesia.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he might be like an anesthesia nurse or something. I don't know. I know that, or like whatever a physician's assistant is. I think he's that.
Okay.
So he can actually go in and do the.
Yeah.
So he can do the anesthesia, and he.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just quite interesting to, you know, to look back on that time. He actually really liked me. He didn't obviously like my brother, but I had a really good, he didn't hurt me. He didn't abuse me. Although I was abused by others, he didn't. So I can be grateful for that. He wasn't a violent criminal. He was that manipulative, persuasive guy. He was a drug addict.
Have you done history? Have you looked back on his life before he met your mother? Do you know what made him turn towards the dark side instead of being a genius and a doctor, and what he could have done with his life?
So I have only recently looked back into his previous life. He had a son who he gave up for adoption. And I knew him. I didn't know. I knew that was his son, but I didn't know that he gave him up for adoption. He gave him up for adoption to his mother. So his mother raised him, and his son was raised thinking that John was his brother. Until he was wasted. Apparently, I found out from his son, because I recently reconnected with his son, and his son told me at about 9 years old, when he was about 9, John was wasted, and said, "Oh, I'm actually your dad." So he did find out eventually that was his dad. But I did. He's always been this way. He's always been this way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Goodness.
So I think we said before the podcast started, I don't think we said it on the air here, but episode 1 is out, and you're a little frantic. You're getting calls from all over, and your brother reached out.
Yes.
Can you tell everybody what's going on there?
Yeah, and I am an open. One of the things I do want to say is that I'm very honest, and my integrity to the stories that I tell are real. Nothing is made up. I have receipts for most of them, like not real receipts, but and I think what's difficult about sharing, this whole situation with my brother is that, he is and was a victim of the same abuse that I was, that I dealt with, just on a different level. He was being abused by all of the male adults in my mom's life, all the men that came in and out of my mom's life. He was abused by because, I always say, like, and I'm lucky enough with my divorce that everything's okay. But like, men in women's life for whatever reason, don't like women's sons. The sons and the men in the life always have issues. So he's had issues with all of my mom's men, and has been severely abused by them. But because of that, he's always kind of repurposed his abuse onto me. And I still have this like intense, visceral fear of him, even though he can't hurt me. It's like I almost freeze, when he reaches out, because he's not happy that I'm sharing details of his life. He wants to move on from that. He did spend a lot of time in jail. He also was a criminal and, stole from people. And, he ended up spending a lot of time in jail for a hate crime where he beat somebody up. And I think it was a gay man. So he got 25 years, I think. And he spent about 17 years in jail, something along those lines. So him coming out of jail, I was there for him. But once he found out about this, he kind of freaked out and threatened to sue me, and is telling me that, I'm the ugly duckling of the family and nobody loved me anyway. And, kind of saying really mean and hurtful things that is hard. It's been really, really difficult for me because I don't want to hurt anybody. My truth is my truth, and I'm sorry that it hurts him, but it's my truth. And, I'm not going to stop because he's trying to manipulate me to stop, or trying to, use his words to hurt or scare me.
Has he turned his life around? Has he turned his life around?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I do think he's finally trying to be better, because he did get out of jail before and then got involved in other stuff. He did get out on parole, and then got in trouble again and went back for 5 or 6 years. And then this last time he came out, I think he realized, like, okay, it's time to do better. And he's working. He's got a girlfriend.
Awesome.
I do believe that he wants to do better. I just don't think he has the capacity to really process all of this and not take it as like an attack on him. It's not an attack on him. He just doesn't have the capacity to understand that. And that's understandable, but it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me. Definitely not.
Well, I can't imagine.
It's scary. Yeah.
Probably, I think it's probably he just hasn't dealt with everything that he's been through too. And maybe it's scary on his end, and he's taking it out on you. Not to excuse him for what he's doing, but, I don't know, maybe the maturity aspect emotionally isn't quite there yet because of everything he went through. and again, that doesn't excuse him coming after you like that.
But
I'm just
also
saying that
other
could
people bringing up your charges. He did get arrested for this. He did get arrested for that.
be. Right. Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to put that behind me. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of see that too. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
And
But
that
you
is
gotta fess up
100%
to get past it.
understandable that he wants to put this behind him. I 100% agree. And I think he feels like he could share this story. And I gave him an opportunity, and I gave all of my siblings an opportunity to come on and share their truth. I gave my mom an opportunity to come on and share my truth, her truth. Even though we don't have a relationship, I reached out to all of them, and they all chose not to do that. So, you know, it's there. He still can come on. I would still welcome him on to talk about the issues that he had and what issues he has with me even. You know, I would love for him to do that. He just, none of them have agreed. So, you know, and that's okay. They don't have to agree. I'm a little upset because he sent me these messages with all of the siblings that I grew up with, and not one person, not one of them reached out to ask me if I was okay, you know, and that really kind of hurt me. And all of these times that he's done this, he's done it in the group setting, like with all of us in there. So it's been really difficult. And literally, like, they're still going on right now.
Oh, good. Do you have good relationships with the other siblings though? Or is it just kind of,
I mean,
because of everything we all went through, it's not quite there?
so I don't have I don't believe I have a typical sibling relationship with my siblings. One of them, yes, I feel like we had a pretty good connection and we have been there for each other. But the other ones, not so much. So, you know, it's really their prerogative to be there for me or not be there for me. It doesn't matter. It's not stopping me. I let them know in a separate text, listen, I'm doing this for me, and I'm happy that I'm doing it. And I'm really proud of myself and happy. And if you are happy for me, great. And if you're not, I'm okay with that too. You know, it sucks that it's their story that I'm also sharing, but it's really about my story, not theirs. What it was like for me, what I experienced, and I have a right to share that, you know. But yeah, just as I looked the phone. Go ahead. You talk to your brother? I was saying, I just looked at my phone and they're like.
But I don't talk to my sister.
I definitely don't talk to them.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a regular relationship with my sisters either. So that's why
I don't think you're alone there.
No.
I don't think you're alone there. My sister's 18
Yeah,
years
I don't
older
think.
than
I don't
me.
think. Oh.
I don't. You know, I think you see stuff in movies that are, you know, they're best friends and they go through life together and they're. But I don't know if that really happens in the real world. Once you're an adult and you have your own family,
my
you
cousins
kind of.
are pretty close.
Are they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
She said her cousin.
I mean, and you know, yeah, I think my story, you know, you said you're not alone there. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't, I honestly, like, even in telling the story, I don't feel like I had the work. I know so many people who've suffered such horrible things in their life. And I also work with those types of kids that you were talking about earlier. I work for a local school district. So I've worked with these kids. I've seen horrible, horrible things that parents have done to their kids that I can't imagine experiencing. So I don't think that I've had the worst life ever. And I don't feel sorry for myself. I feel almost the opposite. Like, I want to utilize the strengths that I have and the things that I dealt with to kind of help other people deal with those things. Because I have an understanding. I see people with a different lens. I understand what it feels like to be abandoned, to be alone, to feel scared, to go to school, you know, after being yelled at or screamed at or hit or abused. You know, I know that feeling. So, you know, it's important for me to be able to be there for people and and also say that, like, listen, I know I didn't have it the worst. I don't even think I had it the worst in my own immediate family. I think my siblings probably, some of them had it a hell of a lot worse than I did.
So that was did you fall into that job, or you went looking for that job to help younger people out of school?
I
like
went
that?
looking. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in when I was 40, I had this whole like epiphany of I don't like what I'm doing. I was a bartender. I never went to college, unfortunately. I should have. And I was a bar manager and bartender at like a local little bar and grill. And I just was like, didn't feel fulfilled. So I took a huge pay cut, like more than half of my salary. I took a huge pay cut and decided to work with these individuals who, have special needs, and, not only the emotional piece, but also, children who are autistic, which just kind of ties into Walt because he's also autistic. So I really understand him. And it's why I can have these honest conversations with him. Like, okay, Walt, you need to stop talking now. Like, that's too much. Like, because he kind of struggles with, first of all, he spent 29 years in jail. But on top of that, he kind of doesn't have a filter, which some autistic, individuals don't know how to have a filter. So you kind of have to like guide them, guide them through life. And, so yeah, I went searching. And I think
a lot of people.
I'm a big what?
I said, I bet you're a big blessing to a lot of people there. Just the way that you can understand and be there in a way that someone who hasn't gone through what you've gone through, they couldn't. So, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I think it's my biggest strength. And if you were to ask anyone who knows me, they would probably all say that I give to a fault. I give people what ultimately I want, which is unconditional love and understanding and no judgment, because none of us are perfect. And, at the end of the day, really what we need is love. We need love, and we need to feel seen and heard. And a lot of these kids in particular are looked at as criminals or, bad. And I really think it's important not to do that. So yeah, I feel like over the years, I've definitely made a difference in quite a few kids' lives and adults too. But no big head, because,
Does your principal or faculty know your story?
So this is interesting. I actually switched I'm still in special ed, but I did switch departments, and I kind of work in the in central office now, doing like I work with the psychologist, so it's a much different job. I'm not working completely directly with the kids. Only in the summer do I work with them. And not until this podcast released do people really know what I went through. So it's going to be, that's also the other aspect, because I was at work and people are like, oh, I heard your podcast. Oh, I saw it. And I was like, oh God, like what's going to happen? But it is what it is. And there's been, I literally, my inbox is like my text message. When I woke up this morning, I probably had 45 text messages, like, my phone I had to plug it in so many times because people are just shocked. Because if you met me, you wouldn't think these things. You wouldn't think like, wow, this is what this girl's been through. Because I don't like to talk about it. I don't feel sorry for myself. And I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I had a crappy upbringing, so that's why I'm doing this. I just move on, do what you got to do. When you feel bad, go to the gym. When you're upset, maybe I might eat a cookie or something, or like a cupcake, because I love to eat my sweets. But, you find other ways. That's why I work out.
So did they ever open up the files of all of these confessions and try to find the real people, or to verify it, or has that all been swept under the rug? I feel like they've reopened the files.
I think... So I'm not 100%. And if Walt was sitting here, he'd be able to tell you every little detail, because he has all these details. I know that there is a unit that because of this book, there's been a unit in the DA's office that has been formulated, and they are trying to look back on. And I know some cases people have been let out, but Walt's is really the biggest case right now of John's that he was exonerated and let out of jail. I mean, what an amazing, like, thank God that this writer, this Tom Lowenstein is the writer of this book. And I attribute Walt's release and all of the everything to him. Even this podcast, I'm going to attribute to him, because without knowing all of this, I don't know if I would have gone this route. I wouldn't have been so passionate
about what? Sorry.
I wouldn't have been so passionate about sharing the story and really bringing light to the corruption, and really what this man did. I think I want to bring light to that as well, and kind of share Walt's story.
So how did they figure out that your brother was falsely accused of murder by your stepdad? How did that?
That's a really good question. I think it was DNA, or maybe it was the jury. Okay. It might have been the jury. I think the jury, it's a really good question, but they did go to trial. So he was exonerated.
Good.
So he was exonerated and found not guilty. So he cannot be charged again. I know that there's like a group of people who are trying to, like, there was a book written about my brother and the case, saying that he did do it. And they have all these, like, supposedly, things that they can prove that he did it, but he didn't. He did it. And they
See, I don't think I can ever be on a jury, because I can play both sides in my head right now. Everybody that John was near, he had these confessions, and 23 people automatically just went to jail. That is astronomical, crazy coincidence that he just happened to meet all these people, and all these people just confessed to him. On the other hand, 7 of them, what if some of them are real? I don't know. And I couldn't play that game.
In a jury.
I couldn't play that game in a jury.
Well, I don't think that they were bringing that up probably in his trial. I doubt that was allowed.
See, no, they definitely weren't. I mean, if you were on a jury. Yeah.
That should be
well,
allowed.
I mean, really, there's...
That guy had 19 other people convicted. This guy is either Nostradamus. This guy is the best smooth talker in the world. Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that in relation to that, like, this didn't happen overnight. It was over a period of several years. And what I do know, and again, I talk about this on the podcast because there's some pretty important information regarding this, is that my mom, while initially she was with John in setting my brother up, eventually she had a change of heart. And because of that change of heart, I think is why he wasn't able to which is something happened, and it's kind of a big piece of my podcast, so I really don't want to share, but basically she had a change of heart and didn't cooperate with John and what John wanted her to do. So I think that's luckily she did, and my brother was able to be exonerated because of that.
So your mom's still alive. Is she have a relationship with your brother at all?
She does, surprisingly. I mean, when my brother got out of jail, she went and lived with him. Yeah, that's where he lives. Yeah, wow. It's crazy. That's so it's interesting that my brother, there's a lot of nuggets, let me tell you. I mean, it keeps going. It literally keeps going. There's stories that I'm going to be sharing eventually, probably on season 2. I don't think we'll get to them in season 1 about my mom, even right now, like the stuff that she's doing. And it's crazy. Like you can't make it up. You just can't, and I'm laughing, but I want you to know that.
No, go ahead.
I want everyone to know that I don't think these things are funny. I tend to laugh out of nervousness a little bit, or maybe not nervousness, but it really is unbelievable. The stories, basically what I grew up with, which is why I wanted to share, because, every single person that I've become close with and shared, my therapist or people, friends, whatever, they're like, wait, what? Who? Like, it's just so much and so unbelievable that, it just has to be put out there. So that's
All
why
right,
I'm
so
laughing, because it's just so unbelievable.
Yeah.
so I've known you for probably 2 years now. I feel like it's been about 2 years, and you've been hinting
Yep.
about this podcast,
Yes.
but you said, but it was very vague. It was, you're not going to believe the story I have to tell, and that's all you said. Or, I'm crime family. You're not going to believe the story I have to tell. I just immediately thought crime family. I immediately thought mafia, right? So then, before I got
Everybody
your
thinks that.
before I got your one sheet today, I was thinking, what do I have to contribute to that conversation? Because what do I have? I have something. We talked about it beforehand a little bit. I'm a full disclosure. I told you a little bit, but I'm going to tell everybody because I want my listeners. I've been on this podcast 5 years. I've never told the story, and I'm going to be very vague, and I'm going to say allegedly, because people are still alive, and I don't want to die. So
It's a great story.
it's mine. I think I was an accidental henchman, but I was 18 years old. I was working on a farm for a guy that was an antiques dealer. I wrote it all down here because I have to protect myself. I'm not protecting anything of myself. And while I was working for this person, I got pulled over daily because my girlfriend lived an hour from me. So I'd come home at 11 o'clock at night. I'd work for the farmer, and then I would go hang out with my girlfriend and come home 11:30 at night. I get pulled over almost daily. But I thought every time you got stopped, they would set you on the curb or set you in the median of the highway and go through your entire car. Now, I was lifting weights at the time, so I had amino acids and protein powder. So I thought, oh, they think I have drugs. Officer, it's on the label right there. It was protein powder. It's amino acids. It says it on the box. What are you looking for? But every day I was stopped like that. And they weren't nice. They would take all your stuff and they take it from all parts of the car. They throw it on the trunk, shut the trunk, and send me on my way. Every time they pulled me over. I didn't think anything of it. I was a kid. I was probably going over the speed limit every day. I was a kid. Maybe a couple miles over, and she tells me it's okay to go 5 miles over, but I'm still traumatic from being pulled over daily back then. Here, hold on. This person I worked for, and I was moving equipment for them. They had an antiques thing, and they would show me, this is an antique painting. This is a desk. This is this. I just got this. But this box over here, it's very heavy. It's going to take 4 of us to move this one into that tractor trailer to be taken off to whatever. We sold it on eBay. Okay. I found out 20 years later that the guy I was working for, his house got, a SWAT team broke into his house. They parachuted like a Christmas Vacation off his roof, busted through the windows. An entire SWAT team. I don't know what else I can say. But they found nothing. And 20 years later, I'm working a gig as a magician, and a guy comes up to me, one of the SWAT team members, and said, man, that was a really great show back there. I remember you from 20 years ago, 30 years ago at this point. And he said, you were on our list. We were checking you out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, this raid and everything, you were a part of that. What do you mean? So then I found out that this person was suspected of moving. Allegedly, of moving. I don't even know what I can say, because if I say the real thing.
Just say weapons? I don't know.
Yeah, moving arms. I'll just put it that way. But I have no idea. And I don't know that I touched anything that had something in it. I honestly, and I would tell you.
Sounds like
I would tell you 30 years later, dude, that thing had that in it. I wouldn't know. Everything was closed. Everything was. They would open up some crates and show me there was stuff in it, but I don't know.
It doesn't sound on the up and up.
But if there was drugs in the desks and things,
right,
I wouldn't have known. I didn't look at drawers. Yeah. I didn't open up Tiffany lamps and unscrew the bottom, and it's a Tiffany lamp. It's worth $700. Okay.
Why would you? Why would you? You were doing.
Right.
I don't understand. Why would you? Right.
So here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that I took notice of.
And you need to use your muscles.
I was 18 years old working out. Another thing, allegedly, I ended up suing that guy because I had a job working.
Not allegedly, you really did.
I really did. I'm just saying allegedly because I'm scared to death. But they owed me like a month fee for working on the farm.
Oh.
And then I told them, hey, I need to take off for October to do a Halloween event I was doing. I got $18,000 for real. This isn't allegedly. To work a farm as an 18-year-old kid. I got 18 grand to work another farm at Virginia Beach. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was doing magic. They hired me to decapitate people for a haunted hayride. They hired me to, do kids entertainment during the day for all the school groups that were coming through. And then at nighttime, we did the scary magic to freak people out. I got great money. But the guy said, hey, look, I'll give you $5 grand if you promise to come back in November. Okay. When I came back in November, I had no job. It was already filled. And I'm like, hey, what's up? I have it in writing here. Plus you owe me $5 grand, the $5 grand, plus you owe me my month fee. So I went to a lawyer. I'm like, I don't know what I do. I go to a lawyer. The lawyer said, dude, you have a case. Plus my girlfriend was there. She knew how much money was owed to me. And he said, yeah, you got a case. Come back next week and we'll talk about it. When I came back the next week, his eyes were bugging out of his head. He said, who is this farmer? This guy is connected to the biggest lawyers I've ever seen. I can't do anything. I mean, he was stuttering. And this guy was, I'm a kid, but this guy was a lawyer. He knew what he was doing. He was freaked out. So I'm like, stuff's, bullets are flying at me. Stuff's falling off the shelf. I've said too much. But
Oh, God.
this is all alleged. But that's my story. That I've said enough.
So your story, I think, is absolutely, like, to me, that's like so scary. Like, you could have gone to jail for a long time had you been caught.
I had no idea. But what did I do? I don't know. I honestly, and I could say, oh, I saw stuff. I never saw anything. So, what is it? Ignorance is no excuse for the law. Cops have told me that.
Wow.
I have been told, but I don't know. I never saw anything. So I may have been a henchman, but I was definitely involved during that time period. And it does make sense now looking back and how things just hindsight. That's why I got pulled over almost daily. That's, since that's all happened in 30 years, I've been pulled over maybe a handful of times in 30 years, right? Maybe gotten one ticket. I have never been evacuated from my car and had to curb while they go through everything. That just doesn't happen. But it happened to me every time back then, and I didn't know. I was a kid. I didn't know.
Well, and that brings up a really good point, not to take away from your story at all, because I couldn't imagine having been in that situation. I'd be scared to death to be pulled from my car and then learning 20 years later. But it just goes to show that when you don't know, I mean, there are kids who grow up in a family and this is what their life is like. They don't know any different. They don't know any better. And like you said, all these parents that are in jail and then these kids come back and then they're the ones in the program because they're doing exactly what they saw their parents do. So again, it really kind of brings it full circle back to wanting to hopefully change even just one life and remind people that you don't need to be what your family is, you don't.
Yeah.
Girl, this is, you teach this so much. Like I said, I thought it was a mafia story, but it's so much.
I hope you're not disappointed.
No,
I'm not disappointed
at all.
I am shocked that I knew the story. I've seen it on Unsolved Mysteries or something. Mm-hmm. I know this. I feel like I can look up YouTube videos now and find out more because I know that story exists with all these people out here.
Yeah.
But you lived it.
Right.
I did. I'm still living it. I have 18 messages on my phone right now in that group chat, and I can't bring myself to read them. I can't bring myself to read them yet. I don't know. I think I need to get out of it. I think I need to remove myself because it's
take a break. Yeah.
I need to sleep tonight. I don't think I'm going to be able to with all of
So you told me you have a podcast producer that is wink, wink, your therapist at this point. I don't know how close you guys are. I don't know how close you guys are, but could he look at them?
Well, he's in California.
Okay.
So I'll have someone else look at them or maybe I'll just be brave and look at them and then leave the chat. But it's hard because I want to reply, but at this point I need to not engage, because I don't want, it could get ugly, and I don't deserve that. I don't deserve it. So I think it's just better for me not to engage. And I have an attorney just in case anything does come through. But, my attorney's like, no one is going to take a case because, he wants to do a cease and desist and, sue me for defamation of character. But, when you guys listen, you're going to be like, yeah, no.
Right.
So I really do encourage you to take a listen afterwards.
Okay.
No,
Now
yeah.
that you know this
So
story.
it came out today,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
She was at school with my daughter. My daughter has like ballet recital. We're homeschoolers, but she
Ooh,
has
that's
she has
great.
some classes that we take her to. And I was at home with the twins, so I couldn't.
You have
listen.
twins?
We
Yes.
have twin 4-year-olds. So
Oh,
I was at home changing diapers and everything, and I saw it come in. I said, "Awesome, girl! Congratulations!" Back to changing diapers. So I didn't get a chance. So sorry. Yeah. But
No, I so appreciate you, Wes, and meeting your wife is great. It's so amazing to hear that you have twins, 4-year-old twins. You're absolutely my kids are 21 and 25. I can't imagine going back there, and I most certainly can't imagine having twins. Wow.
Yeah.
And you homeschool.
Yes. Among all the other things. But
We're
yes.
on the road so much.
Yeah.
We do 400 shows a year, so we don't know any other way. We don't have anybody in either one of our families that homeschool.
I never thought I would homeschool my children growing up. I was just like, if I have kids, they're going to school just like I did. But then, yeah, with our schedule, it's
We'd
just
never
not
see 'em.
possible. So,
N-
yeah.
Now
I
you
just go to school again.
yeah, you get to go to school again. And didn't you say you were going back to school yourself?
Yes, this is actually my second day. So after I get off here, I got to cook dinner, and then I'm going to go do my schoolwork. So,
Don't feel bad
my.
for her. I'm a single father.
oh,
Okay.
Polly.
4-year-old twin.
Oh, Polly.
She is in the bedroom on a laptop. She says she's studying. I'm imagining sister wives and bonbons in there
You can-
while I'm changing dirty diapers.
You come crash into the bedroom anytime you want. You will see me.
Oh, well, you two are absolutely adorable. Are you ever going to be in this area? You going to do any shows in this area?
Oh, we do
Hopefully.
shows. We do shows all over. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were up in Philly last year. There's a place called Smoke and Mirrors. We worked there last year,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're opening up. What does he call it? The Magic what? We just did a whole episode
I
last
know.
week.
What is it called? It's awful.
It's awful that we, as adults, forget the simplest things. Like,
Oh, that's
I just watched this whole series. I had pneumonia right before Christmas, and it was 6 seasons. I watched it every single day. I could not think of the name of the series that I watched. I finally did, and I'm like, yeah, I just watched the show, and I'm like, I don't remember the name. It was Animal Kingdom. It was like really interesting.
Oh.
It's about a crime family, actually.
okay.
Well,
Yeah.
please let me know when you're in
House
town.
of Magic. The House
Of Magic.
That was my
Okay.
friend Mark D'Souza, and I had Smoke and Mirrors, but he's opening up this new place, and I haven't seen it yet. But the House of Magic is coming. Anyway, up in your area, so.
Please let me know when you're in the area. I would love to support you. I would love to bring people to you as well. I would,
Aw,
absolutely.
You're awesome.
Thank
You're
you.
awesome. So tell everybody your podcast. It comes out weekly on Tuesdays.
So it is going to be a weekly drop on Tuesdays for 8 weeks. We committed to eight episodes, and then eventually there'll be a season 2. Yes, every Tuesday. It's the Hall Closet Podcast. It's not available on Apple quite yet. I don't know why Apple's takes so long, but it's available on all the other wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Sweet.
And social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
All of it. TikTok, YouTube. It's all the Hall Closet Podcast. And my website is thehallclosetpodcast.com.
Girl.
And I'm really interested in feedback, so please feel free to email me, message me. I'm all open to the feedback, positive or negative.
I wish you all the best. Good luck with everything. And I don't know. I don't want your family yelling at you, but I want it to be successful. But God bless you. You're
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. You
Keep
guys
in
are
touch.
as well.
Only thing we have left to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.